Hello guys. So today we'll be looking into mixed integer linear programming formulation for flowchart scheduling with sequence dependent changeovers. So let's first try to understand what's a flowchart scheduling. So flowchart scheduling problems are basically scheduling problems within a workshop in which the flow control shall enable an appropriate sequence for each job and for processing on a set of machines or other resources for a given order. What we mean here is that we are given a set of jobs and we need to complete these jobs on some set of machines or some given resources. Now this everything is happening with respect to some orders that we have got. So flowchart scheduling is a special case of job shop scheduling where there is a strict order of all the operations to be performed on the jobs. Okay, but you must be wondering, what's a job shop scheduling? So job shop scheduling or job shop problem is basically an optimization problem in which all the jobs are assigned to resources at some particular time. Okay, so say we are given n jobs, J1, J2, Jn of varying processing times. These need to be scheduled on some M machines. Now these machines have different processing power. So that's why there will be different time at which each of these machines will be giving out their output. Hence, there is a different time component that is connected to these. So the entire system will have a net time for one complete product to get completed. So this time that entirely is required for one product to get completed is a makespan. So if you were wondering what's a makespan, this is what it is. So let us just formally read it. So the makespan of a project is the distance in time that elapses from the start of the work to the end. So the makespan is the total length of a schedule, that is when all the jobs have finished processing. So I think that's what we have just discussed. So let us take an example of a car manufacturing unit. Say we have got some departments in which they are concerned with their own particular task only. Supposing on the left we can see the unit of cases creation and on the right we are seeing the unit of engine creation. So there are different departments in flow shop and each component will be working on their own defined task. Now it is the job of the scheduler to optimize these outputs so that the final product can be created in the most optimal time. That is, the least makespan is required to complete the entire product. Now, first of all, we should actually thank Henry Ford for creating the assembly line, because today we are having the cars that are getting produced in 17 to 18 hours. But if Henry Ford's thought of an assembly line would not be there, it would take months. So basically, he has created a pipeline of the entire system where every single department can work on their own. So now let us look at the constraints for the job shop problem. We will just quickly run through these. So no task for a job can be started until the previous task for the job is completed. A machine can work only on one task at a time. A task once started must run to completion. The factors that define the job shop scheduling problem. So the arrival pattern, number of machines, work sequence, and the performance evaluation criteria. Now let us look into the MILP formulation. So MILP formulation addresses two problems that are of discrete and continuous decision variables. We can try to imagine that a job shop problem will have various components, and if you are trying to optimize the entire flow, there'll be different type of decisions that we'll be needing to make. Now these decisions will be supported by different types of data. So hence we will not be able to have some same type of data all the time. Hence some solvers which are trying to address these kind of issues which have variety of data might not end up giving some solution at all. So what we need to have is a solver which will be definitely able to give us a solution. So we have got some solvers like CPLEX. So generally models of this form are pretty complex, and because of their complexity there is no guarantee that we will get an output. Solvers which use this strategy are always able to find a solution. So that is an amazing result, because every time we are formulating an objective, we are definitely going to get an output. Okay, well, there are some minor constraints. You have to help the solver. So every time we are correctly defining the objective function and the bounds to it, we are definitely going to get an output. Let's look into what's sequence dependent changeover. Let us shift the domain from a car manufacturing unit to, say, a unit which is responsible for creating an ice cream. So basically the issue is there are two types of ice cream in the crude format that is available. So we are passing this cream into an aging vessel, and the output of that vessel is a proper ice cream. So supposing we have got some orders of chocolate and butterscotch ice creams to be produced. So let's say we go for creating the chocolate ice cream first and then the butterscotch. Now, because there we can understand how chocolate and butterscotch taste, so it is understandable that chocolate is a dominating flavor, and if we are going to create ice creams without cleaning the vessel, then the taste of chocolate will be still present in the vessel, which will add on to butterscotch, and hence the original taste of butterscotch will get lost. But on the other hand, if we have butterscotch ice creams to be produced first and then the chocolate, things would be a little bit different. So if we can imagine, so let's say the butterscotch ice creams are created first and then the chocolate ones. So we can understand that because chocolate being a dominating flavor, it will not get much affected by the butterscotch flavor. Hence, by this we can understand that we are actually avoiding one cleanup. This is an optimization success because we are not only saving time, but we are also saving resources. There are a lot of resources that will be getting saved, because every time a cleaning that has to be done, the vessel has to be cleaned up. For that, different raw materials are required. So we are optimizing not only on time, but also some other raw material. So this is very important, and hence we understand that sequence dependent changeover is a very integral part of Flowsharp scheduling problems, because if we can understand and manage such kind of interdependent productions, we will be saving a lot of time and raw materials also. So let's just put everything together. First, we need to define the system. So by defining the system we need to decide the objective and specify the parameters accordingly. Now, after that, we need to do the formulation, that is the variables and constraints, the number of variables we'll be having in the system and the constraints that are going to be applied on each of these variables. With these variables that we have found, we will be doing an efficient transformation, that is with respect to the objective function that we have defined and the variables, we will be making a transformation, and based on this we will be getting an optimized result. Hence, the optimization problem will result in some appropriate answers with respect to the solver. Now, after that, we can review the results, and we can even have different solvers find out which would give us the best possible answer.
Okay guys, so far we have covered all the basic concepts related to Flowsharp scheduling. And now let's get into the boring part, which is the mathematical formulation of our MILP. So let's define our system, which we are considering here. As you can see, there are some jobs and there are some machines. So our system will be characterized by this N and M, that is the number of jobs we have and the number of machines we have. What are the other parameters we will be using? So first we have I, J and K. These are nothing but the indices we will use to denote jobs and machines. We will use I and J for jobs and we will use K for machines. Then we have the processing time of each task on each machine denoted by TIK. TIK stands for the processing time needed for job I on machine K. Then we have changeover times, CIJK. So CIJK stands for the changeover time between job I and job J on machine number K. And finally, we have our objective here, which is to minimize Q, that is our makespan. And by now we all know what makespan is. Makespan stands for like the total time gap between the absolute start and end point of our system. And now let's see what are the decision variables we need to calculate in this problem. So what are the decisions we have to make? We have to decide when to start a task on a machine. So first we will be considering SIKs. What is SIK? The start time of task or job I on machine number K. This you can see in this figure that, okay, we have two machines and we have a job named I. So it starts here on machine I, it ends at this point. There is some time gap. It starts here on machine 2 and now here it ends here. So this point will be SI1 and this point will be SI2. And obviously, as it's the time, it cannot be a negative variable that we have to add in the bounds of our problem. And next we have these variables Pij, which is the integer part of our MILP. Pij is an integer, or rather we would say a binary variable. It can take only two values, either 0 or 1. So what does this mean? If Pij is equal to 1, then we can say that J precedes I, or J will be processed after I. If Pi is equal to 0, that means J doesn't precede I, or I precedes J. So how many Pijs we need to consider here? We need to consider all possible pairs of Pijs. So there are n jobs, so there will be NC2 different pairs. And one more thing we need to consider is, if Pij equal to 1, it's obvious that Pji will be equal to 0. It will be redundant. And so we will be considering only one pair for every we will consider only one decision variable for every pair. And one important thing here to notice that it's a general precedence, not an absolute or immediate precedence. So if I precedes J, that doesn't mean I comes immediately after J. It can come anytime after J. It could be J, J1, J2, J3 and I, that kind of stuff. So after defining these decision variables, now let's get into the constraints. Where are we applying constraints? Because we know the computers are dumb and we need to explain them everything in terms of these algebraic equations, which we call here the constraints, or in equations rather, we would say. So first we have the expression for defining the flow. It says Sik plus 1 greater than or equal to Sik plus Tik. What does this mean? Okay, Sik is starting point of job I on machine K. Tik is the process time. So the RHS means the completion point of job I on machine K. And LHS here stands for the starting point of job I on the next machine. So it's obvious that the starting point on the next machine will be greater than the completion time on the previous machine. Unless it's finished on the previous machine, we can't go to the next. But it's not equal to, because we may need to have some waiting time in that duration. After that, we have some long equations. Here we are naming them the cheeky constraints. We will have a look at them afterwards. So finally, we have some constraint for handling Minkspan. It says Q should be greater than equal to SIM plus TIM. We know SIM plus TIM will be the starting point plus total processing time. So RHS consists of the finishing time for job I on the last machine. And as we know, as we define our Q will be the maximum of all of them. So for each value, it should be greater than or equal to. Q should be greater than or equal to this. Now, let's have a look at the cheeky constraint we define. These two are equations. And okay, first of all, what does this M is doing here? This M can be any large number, any big number we can use here. To understand what this constraint mean, this E1 and E2 mean, let's see this table. So if we consider first if Pij equal to 1, what does that mean? We know that it means J precedes I. So in this case, if we put it in E1, this term vanishes because it becomes 0, and Sjk greater than equal to Sik plus Tik plus Cij. If we can translate it into the layman terms, it will tell us that after starting the job I on machine K, then processing it, and then doing the necessary changeover, then only we are ready to start. So this time will always be greater than equal to RHS. And now if you have a look at E2, this is 1, so this is minus M RHS. And since M is a very large number, this will be a highly negative number, and it will obviously be less than or equal to this LHS. LHS will be obviously greater. And so this is kind of a redundant constraint. We won't even consider it. It's something obvious. And if Pij is equal to 0, that means I comes after J, then this order gets reversed. The E1 constraint becomes something redundant, and E2 is something similar to what we saw in E1 when Pij was equal to 1. So we have defined all the constraints, all the variables, all the parameters. Now let's get to our test case. We have defined a problem here, and we are going to solve using the library Pyomo and a solver named CBC. You can see the entire code. It is hosted on GitHub, and you will find a link in the description of this video. But we won't be explaining the code line by line here. You are free to explore it there on GitHub. And let's see the problem. So here we have given a system. It consists of an ice cream production, and you can see we are obsessed with ice creams, but who doesn't like ice creams? So here we have a pasteurizer, a mixer, and a packing machine. So these three are on machines, are M equal to 3. And then we have some flavors, vanilla, butterscotch, chocolate, and mango. So these flavors, we can consider them as our jobs here. So we have 4 jobs, and Rn is equal to 4. Now, the data we need for this problem, we are given 2 tables here. So first table is of processing times. So let's say in row B and column mixer, we have 20. What does this mean? So the flavor butterscotch needs 20 minutes to process on the mixer we have here. And this applies for every row and every column, every possible combinations, and this time is given in minutes. The second table is for the changeover times, and it's sequence dependent. So we have it for every possible pair here. It is also in minutes. So let's say in the row B and column C, we have 231. What does it say? So if after butterscotch, we have to go for chocolate, then on pasteurizer, we will have 2 minutes of changeover time. On mixer, we will have 3 minutes. And on packing machine, we will have 1 minute of time. This is our problem, and we have to minimize the make span. So we have solved this problem using our code, and this is the result we have found. So if you run the code, this Gantt chart will appear on your screen as well. So there are 19 different variables and 30 different constraints we have used to define this problem. It's just solved in 0.14 seconds. And the answer, the optimal make span we have got here is 110 minutes. You can see this in the table, approximately 2 hours. And the optimal order, that is the solution we need here, is mango, chocolate, vanilla, and butterscotch. That you can see in this figure. First goes mango, then chocolate, then vanilla, and then butterscotch. And this order gives us the minimum or the optimum make span. So this is how we have solved the problem. You guys are free to change the number of variables, the parameters, or you can even add the constraints, and you can play with the code we have given to you, and you can solve even more complicated problems. So let's conclude this. So what we have done so far, we have presented you a basic understanding of formulation of the Flowshop system and sequence dependent changeovers in it. The formulation can account for release dates. Okay, so if you have to add some release dates, let's say every job is not available initially at time 0, then you have to do nothing. You have to just add a few more constraints. That is, for the starting time of every job on machine 1, you have to add the lower bound. It cannot be 0. It should be the lower bound, and that should be the release date we have. Then we have presented a general MILP formulation for a very simple system. We have instantiated the formulation in Pyomo, and we have solved it using the CBC solver. The system we have shown here is a very simple and fictitious system. If you go to the real life flow shops, if you go to real life problems, they are much more complicated. There are much more variables, much more constraints there. And this is just a starting point we are providing you. This code can be used to model even more complicated systems. You can add variable, you can add constraints, you can add stuff and other parameters, and you can provide the data needed accordingly, and you can develop the code and you can solve it similarly the way we have solved the simple problem shown here. So basically we are saying that what we have covered here is just a tip of an iceberg. There are plenty more situations you will come across in the real life problems, like uncertainty, the factor of uncertainty. There will be some resource constraints. There will be some limited intermediate storage. There will be some policies. We may have to use some other heuristics, other types of changeovers needed. There are some production campaigns and a lot more stuff. So in this, we have just given you a basic idea of how to solve a Flowshop scheduling problem using mixed integer linear programming. And I hope you enjoyed this, you learned something new. And okay, thanks for watching.